Jonathan, perhaps.
Sam, I think it's very helpful to have these three projects laid out. And yes, I'm saying we need to start with a descriptive project. You're saying we're ready to move on to clarifying what we mean by morality and then persuading people to adopt better morals. I think it's very dangerous to embark on Project 2 until you really have done a thorough job of Project 1 and exploring all the different moralities that are out there. When you look at moralities that preach or that support violence against women and beheading, then you're triggering all of our intuitions. It's very difficult for us to think about those moralities and take them seriously. But I'd like to push you on a morality which is much closer to home and not so outrageous, which is American conservatism. One of my sort of enlightenment experiences was in India, saying, oh my God, these people aren't crazy. Another one happened to me when I happened to be in the Strand bookstore in the late 1990s in New York, and I saw a book called Conservatism. I was going to teach a course on political psychology, so I just pulled it off the shelf. It was by Jerry Muller, edited by Jerry Muller. I just happened to sit there on the floor reading the introductory essay. And it was like the scales fell from my eyes, because he wasn't saying conservatism is justified because, orthodox beliefs in God. No. It was basically a practical defense. It was a practical argument about how when you organize society in certain ways with respect for institutions and an emphasis on the family and the importance of bad actions getting punished and not bailing people. I mean, it was basically an argument that conservative positions, conservative ideas lead to human flourishing. That had never occurred to me before.
Yeah, no, but I'm completely open to that possibility. In fact, I agree, as stated, I agree with it.
Okay, yeah. So if that's the case, so suppose it turns out that if we really do Project 1, the descriptive project, right, and we then move on to Project 2, linking various ways of living with human flourishing. So if it turns out that, say, Arthur Brooks is right in his book about gross national happiness, that the happiest people are gun-owning, Republican, family men, et cetera, et cetera. Basically the conservative lifestyle, which is oriented around family and not oriented around altruism towards strangers, but around your obligations to your family, your community. If it turns out that that conservatives are right and that political liberalism leads to too much sort of decay of common structure, would you then move on to stage 3 and say, we scientists have an obligation to persuade people to become liberal, to become conservative? Would you agree with that?
I think we have again, it comes down to how there's a real difficulty in assessing well-being. If you just ask people, how happy are you, then it's given how hard it is to correct for people's differing expectations. I mean, how happy should people expect to be in life? I mean, there are people who are going to be overjoyed tonight just to have stopped their use of methamphetamine, and then there are people who are going to be depressed tonight to have found that they slipped on the Forbes 400 list, and to equate one person's joy and another person's depression there. It's very difficult to define well-being in a way that is going to make us confident that we have assessed these things. But yes, all I'm saying is that there are right and wrong answers. So it's quite possible that a conservative style of living, in certain respects, is better at encouraging human flourishing, defined in as open-ended a way as we can define it. And what I'm arguing is that there are frontiers of flourishing, surely, that we haven't discovered, and facts about flourishing about which we must be ignorant, in the same way that there are frontiers of physics and chemistry and everything else that we haven't discovered and about which we're ignorant or mistaken. And once you grant that space, then you have to grant that some people are right or righter, and some people are wrong or wronger about morality. And that seems to be something that you and other scientists tend never to want to grant.
That's not true. You're lumping me in with the moral relativists and anthropologists.
Okay, well, but again, you even in your talk, you conceded whether there was some ambiguity about whether you were a relativist, and John lumped you in. So
I'm not a moral realist.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm saying
you take the most extreme form of relativism and say that anybody who's not a realist like you is the crazy relativist who says, "Oh, who are we to judge Hitler?"
Well, no, but then the question is, what tools can you use to judge? And if you're using the same tools I'm using, then why not, let's just be honest about the basis for our judgment. I mean, the basis is, when push comes to shove, we are concerned about human well-being. We may have slightly different ideas about what constitutes well-being or how to get there, and that's all open to conversation and negotiation and good science, etc. But there are people who at least claim to be playing a totally different game. And what I'm saying is that we need not take them seriously in the same way that we don't take creationist scientists seriously, and for often the same reasons. But yeah, no, there are ways in which I mean, the project one, the descriptive project, is incredibly important. Certainly, the psychological and neurobiological aspect of it. I think the evolutionary aspect of it is not so. It's fascinating. It's not so important for our purposes because the truth is we don't really care why we're in the situation we're in. I mean, it's not. For instance, you could give a project one to talk about gender issues, the treatment of women. We can give an evolutionary rationale for why most societies tend to treat women like the property of men, right? We come from a long line of men who were ill-disposed to raise another man's child. Project one would be to describe that in evolutionary terms, and the psychological and neurobiological project might be to scan the brains of men who are feeling their honor offended and feeling, a proprietary relationship toward women, etc. But project two would be to discover whether and why and to what degree human communities and individuals begin to flourish more when they outgrow this kind of Bronze Age attitude toward women. And I think we already know enough to know that they do flourish more. We know that life in Afghanistan, where women have a literacy rate of 12% and have a life expectancy of 44 years and are forced to live in cloth bags, we know that that is not a circumstance of human flourishing. We know it's not a moral alternative, a moral counterpoint that we have to take seriously. And I would grant you, I'm prepared to understand everything I don't understand about other cultures, and I am by no means advocating that we take the idiosyncrasies of Western culture as, by definition, a peak on any kind of moral landscape.
Okay, but if religious conservatives and Orthodox Jews are the happiest people in America, Dr. Brooks says, you would be prepared to say, we need to put the full resources of science behind getting more people to be Orthodox Jews or evangelical Christians.
Well, no, because you can be happy for bad reasons. I mean, you can be delusional, and I think that kind of happiness is. I wouldn't concede. They may say they're happier, but
just suppose they really were. I mean, obviously there's.
But the thing is,
suppose the evidence said that they actually were. It wasn't a scale artifact.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Well, no, because